La última hora nos lleva directos al dato del día en lo económico y también a los distintos aspectos de la geopolítica internacional que pasan por la economía. Is the economy stupid? Que diría aquel. Jared Bernstein, el asesor de economía de la Casa Blanca, a estas horas allí, junto a la portavoz y junto a John Kirby. ¿Para qué? Para presumir de Bidenomics frente a lo que están viendo, los datos de inflación. A ver cómo lo hacen, porque hoy la inflación no les favorece. Vamos hasta la Casa Blanca.
Accounting for inflation. And I have a next figure showing that the extent to which you see inflation coming down and prices and wages actually beating prices there, both for all workers and for middle wage workers. This figure includes today's inflation report. Not only has inflation come down, it's now growing more slowly than the pay of low and middle wage workers, meaning their buying power is increased. Now, our work isn't done for sure, but wages outpacing inflation is some of the breathing room that the president talks about. Now, what has that got to do with Bidenomics? Well, rising real wages for middle and low wage workers is at the heart of our middle out, bottom up growth agenda. Our GDP is almost 70% consumer spending, so when the middle class is doing well, the overall economy prospers. That's also a good reason why trickle-down doesn't work. It disproportionately helps those who don't need the help and thereby are less likely to spend the marginal dollar. Or, as the president says, Bidenomics works because when the middle class does well, the poor have a ladder up and the wealthy still do well. Another sign that Bidenomics is working, you see here in the figure, both for today and for tomorrow, is this other figure showing investment in building manufacturing facilities. The incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law are reversing decades of disinvestment in America through the powerful 1-2 punch of policy incentives crowding in private investment. That creates jobs today in constructing these facilities and good jobs tomorrow staffing these factories to manufacture semiconductors, solar panels and wind turbines on our side.
La Casa Blanca, que ha conseguido juntar dos gráficos, en uno está explicando ahora mismo cuándo ha subido el empleo y de hecho en las tres flechitas que ponen allí en esa subida espectacular del empleo que hay, dicen aquí es donde empezamos a hablar de la contribución de los chips americanos y de la fabricación propia. Ponen, aquí llegó Joe Biden, aquí empezaron lo de los chips y aquí llegó la Inflation Reduction Act. Y efectivamente se dispara el empleo. Jared Bernstein, asesor económico de la Casa Blanca, diciendo a todo el mundo directamente que gracias a inyectar 600.000 millones de dólares el empleo ha mejorado. Lo podemos llamar como quieran, pero se parece mucho a subvencionar el empleo, ¿no? A dopar a la economía, como en su momento hicieran los bancos centrales para salir de la crisis. No digo yo que no, pero los bancos centrales retiran el dinero, retiran el quantitative easing y esperan que las políticas fiscales no hagan lo contrario, que es eso. El caso es que sube el empleo y presume Jared Bernstein de ello. Habla también del dato de inflación, dice otra prueba, porque a esto lo llaman los Bidenomics, y dice otra prueba de que los Bidenomics están funcionando es que en realidad la subida de hoy de la inflación no afecta a los hogares más pobres porque la subyacente está bajando. Cuando conviene nos agarramos a la general y cuando no conviene a la inflación subyacente. La realidad es verdad. La inflación subyacente ha caído a niveles de en torno a 2021, que no se veían desde 2021. Ahora bien, hoy ha subido el IPC general y eso también repercute en el bolsillo. Es absurdo decirle a los ciudadanos norteamericanos que no están pagando más de $4 por el galón de gasolina. Eso está ocurriendo. Otra cosa es que la subyacente baje, pero no hagan tampoco encaje de bolillos. Que baje la inflación general repercute, que baje la inflación subyacente repercute más en la bolsa de la compra, pero lo suyo sería que ambas cosas bajaran y se enfocaran hacia el 2%. No al revés, no nos hagamos trampas con los Bidenomics. Arranca la rueda de preguntas para Jared Bernstein en la Casa Blanca.
As the president said in his statement this morning, he's well aware that they put a strain on family budgets, and that's why he's working with congressional Democrats to take action to cut energy costs. It is correct, as you pointed out, that gas price, the spike in August, caused nearly all of the increase in inflation last month. But gas prices are down from last summer's high by about $1.20 per gallon. They peaked at north of $5 in June of 22, and that saves the family with two drivers about $120 per month. Getting more directly to your question, the Energy Department is in touch with producers and refiners to resolve any issues and to try to ensure stable supply. There is some pressure relief coming in September in the switch over from the summer blend to the winter blend. The winter blend is a somewhat cheaper blend, and also we're moving out of peak driving season, so that lower demand also takes some pressure off. But I think the key point to leave you with on that question is that, again, the President and congressional Democrats are cutting energy costs by investing in clean energy and reducing our dependence on foreign countries that often don't share our values. And so I view the investment agenda that I talked about in my comments as very closely connected to this idea of transitioning to clean energy and more energy independence.
Well, how closely are you tracking the possibility of a spike in gas prices, and are you worried that that could erase some of the gains that have been made in lowering inflation?
Well, to answer your first question, one of the first things I do every morning is click on the AAA gas price, so we track it very closely. I think from a policy perspective, again, the actions that we're taking, working with congressional Democrats to cut energy costs, are at the core of our agenda. Now, I think the important point here, and you mentioned gas prices, climbing and their impact on consumers. The President has been straight up about that, including in his statement this morning. But I also don't think you can divorce that from the other efforts that we're taking to reduce prices in other areas that matter so much to consumers, some of which, by the way, you could see in today's CPI report. The price of eggs, the price of dairy, the price of meat, all those prices actually came down, so not just disinflation, but deflation in those cases. And I think the key thing, if you'll go to that wage graph, I think probably one of the key points there is that even accounting, this was the second graph in my presentation, if you can put that back up, or we can get it to you if you don't have it. The key point there is that when wages are beating prices, there you go.
Bueno, vamos a atenderle justito porque va Bernstein precisamente a hablar del peso de la energía en esa onda inflacionaria y de cómo está afectando. Dice que no está afectando tanto a los trabajadores. A ver qué dices. Le escuchamos un momento ni nos movemos.
To one of the first tenets of Bidenomics, which is empowering workers. So a persistently tight labor market has delivered wage gains that at this point are beating prices. That means that the buying power of your paycheck is going up, and that's the kind of breathing room we're looking for here.
Thanks, Jared. One potential risk to the economy is a UAW strike. Last week, the President said he's not worried about.
Bueno, a ver cómo escapa de esta. Habla de la inflación general cayendo, vamos, que podía haber dado este discurso antes incluso del dato de inflación, si se va a agarrar a eso, porque dice que en general está bajando todo a pesar de que el empleo se conserva fuerte. Y en realidad, y lo hemos dicho aquí también en más de una ocasión, Joe Biden ya ha dicho que bajo su guardia no va a ocurrir que haya necesidad de una recesión para que caiga la inflación, y que ni quiere que repercuta en el empleo, ni quiere que repercuta tampoco en los salarios. A ver, no puede ser todo. En los salarios se está repercutiendo, la gente está teniendo dos trabajos para lo mismo. Esto está pasando ya. Otra cosa es que el empleo está bien dopado, insisto, 600.000 millones de dólares del gobierno para que los sectores sigan hacia adelante. Y con eso es con lo que el empleo se conserva fuerte, etcétera, etcétera. Sí, pero los salarios están cayendo. Si no pasara algo de esto, entre otras muchas cosas, tampoco bajaría la inflación. Esto sale en el libro beige de la propia Reserva Federal, que dice efectivamente hay una moderación salarial e incluso una cierta moderación del empleo y sobre todo de las vacantes de empleo y de las contrataciones que hay. ¿Por qué? Porque si no, no bajaría la inflación. O sea, si de verdad todo el mundo pensase que el empleo que va a encontrar va a ser mejor, que todo el mundo en ese nuevo empleo tuviese un salario mayor, seguiría disparado el consumo, que ya está bastante disparado, sobre todo mirando al sector servicios. Pero la inflación en general ha ido bajando poco a poco porque sí que está afectando en el sentir, en el aspecto de las expectativas económicas que tiene la población y en particular en los salarios. La gente está para hacer el mismo salario teniendo que hacer más cosas, por lo tanto luego intenta gastar menos. Y es verdad que aún así el tejido de la deuda estadounidense es elevado y es muy grueso, incluso con las tarjetas de crédito. Vamos a volver a Jared Bernstein, vamos a ver qué dice el asesor económico de la Casa Blanca y cómo está dando estas explicaciones. Insisto que hoy sale Darrell, en teoría saldrá también John Kirby para tratar los aspectos geopolíticos. Pero bueno, volvemos con Bernstein.
Thank you. Jared, there were some alarming child poverty figures that came out very recently. Given the constraints with Congress and spending, what can the administration do, or what is the administration planning to do to alleviate those?
Well, the explicit plan that we have talked about ever since the President got here and implemented it in the rescue plan is, of course, to extend the enhanced benefits of the child tax credit. I mean, one of the things I took from that report yesterday, and I think everyone should take from that report, is that your child poverty rate is a policy decision. this president decides to have the lowest child poverty rate in history. That was his decision, and others, including 250 or something like that members of the House and 50 Republicans and 50 Republicans in the Senate, have made a very different decision to facilitate a more than doubling of child poverty by allowing the child tax credit that was doing so much of the lifting to achieve that historically low poverty rate, to allow that to expire. The president has consistently argued for reinstatement, and he won't stop fighting for that until we get it back.
I guess my question is, with those constraints that you mentioned in terms of lack of support, is there anything else you can do or intend to do to address that issue?
We intend to continue to not only fight for the enhanced child tax credit, but to do so in a fiscally responsible way. That is, in our budget, we have ample resources to offset that cost, and that's part of the $2.5 trillion in deficit reduction that's raised in the budget that can be devoted to that policy. So not only are we talking about re-achieving historically low levels of child poverty, but we're talking about doing so in the context of injecting much more fairness into the very top end of the tax code. So really, two very important values to this president: a much more fair, progressive